Okay, was that bass line loosely based on the sound of Motown? Well, Motown, certainly. I mean, you can't not play an old Fender and not be kind of linked to the great Mr. James Jamerson. Certainly, I mean, listen to Jamerson's lines, guys, you know, crikey. And if you think about it, what we chatting with Burak and Mac about the licks and stuff, a lot of those great lines are pentatonics, you know? That is a major pentatonic scale, not that Jamerson plays that. He plays... And I think, I don't know if this is an urban myth or whatever, but I was chatting with a bass player friend of mine, and we went out for a drink after a gig, and he was like, he's a big Jamerson nut, you know, so he has a P bass with, you know, flat wounds on it, all the thing, and makes a great tone, really, really nice player, lovely guy. And he was going, do you know how he played that? Because Jamerson is like the classic one finger wonder, you know, and the stuff he plays, you think, how the hell is he doing that? And that line, My Girl, he actually plays open G string, you know, and look at the interval. But when you listen to the record, it does sound like it's an open string. You can hear the difference between fretted notes and open strings. When you listen to it, you can hear like the overbuzz. So I don't know if that's an urban myth or not, but we talked about it long enough for him to buy me a drink. So that was the most important thing about that evening out. Anyway, back to it. So was it inspired by Motown? I think all music is, to a certain extent. Motown did so much for people. You know, look at Detroit, Motor City. It really put it on the map. Yes, it was big industrial town, but the players that evolved there, you know, playing on that scene, the actual musical heroes, Berry Gordy, you know, as the driving force behind it. But then that influence into the Western scene, you know, or those coming back east, if you like, across the Atlantic when they did the early tours in the early 60s. They actually came to Bristol, which is not far away from where we are now. You know, the likes of Marvin Gaye, and it had like this explosive effect on an industry that was, you know, our music industry in the UK was then built around blues and rock and roll, things like the Stones, the Beatles, you know, the Animals, the Small Faces. You couldn't get two polar opposites with that far apart, Motown and, you know, the British blues and rock scene. But what that happened was, it was like a melting pot. You know, we're blessed that I'm able to speak with guys from Turkey, from Poland, you know, from all around the world instantly. Back then, it was a case of, well, they're pressing records on the other side of the Atlantic, we're pressing records on the other side of the Atlantic, and it takes sort of a month for those to get shipped, if they get shipped at all. So you've got these insular pockets of music happening, you know, guys? And it wasn't until they physically shipped the guys over here and they started realizing just how loud a tambourine could be in a mix, that stuff really started to happen. And, you know, the Beatles, you know, Lennon, McCartney, they're really quoted on saying what an impact that had to their own ideas about production that was then fulfilled by the late, great George Martin. And, you know, and look at the sound of the likes of how Mark Ronson in today's industry has risen to fame. He's kind of harked back the early days with Amy Winehouse collaboratively, and that sound of records is the Motown sound, you know. So funny, you think we live in this era where we've got all this great, beautifully clean digital technology, yet you go into a studio and you get an old crusty instrument out, and what do? You want to try and dirty it up a bit, you know, you want to put it through valve preamps, you want to kind of take your beautiful digital mix and apply a little bit of that valve warmth. And to think that in the day they were recording it in a basement, in a house, in a street, is just incredible. And, you know, so I would say that a lot of what I play is influenced by Motown, and I think if bass players answer that one truthfully and honestly, I think every bass player is influenced by Motown in some degree, so therefore the music they play has to. You know, it's about, I think of it as a Motown filter. You can sort of turn it up depending on the situation, so that's cool.